Hello and welcome to the Federal. You're watching Off the Beaten Track, a program in which we take a fairly deep look at one particular issue. Now, the issue that we are going to be discussing today is about cinema. Cinema, as we all know, is possibly one of the big loves of India. Of course, in recent years, the reels which the entire nation seems to be watching on their mobiles while walking, while working, while doing everything at great risk to themselves and to others, because they do it also while driving. Cinema is an integral part of Indian culture. Now, in India, right from the time that we became independent, Pakistan has been like a clipped wing to our society in our consciousness. There isn't a single moment where the existence of Pakistan fades away from the minds of almost every Indian. Some in pain, some in trauma, some in anger, a variety of moods. On the sports fields, there couldn't be a better or a more fierce rivalry than India Pakistan matches. Of course, in recent months, especially after the terrorist attack in Pahalgam and Operation Sindoor, we have had the prospect of Indian players refusing to shake hands with Pakistan players, and then thereafter there has been an equal reciprocation from the other side also. So we will be talking about how does Pakistan figure in Indian cinema. We are talking essentially about Hindi cinema, though we may well, in the course of the conversation, talk about some other languages also, if it suddenly comes up. The moment we talk about Pakistan, we all know that there is also this integral issue of terrorism in our country. There is also the inherent problem of the Hindu Muslim discord, Hindu minorities, religious minorities problem in the country. Now, in many ways, on various occasions, India Pakistan ties, terrorism, and communalism within India, they all get intertwined. So, we will be talking about these issues in a very in depth conversation. And joining me is a very good scholar on this, Meenakshi Bharat, who is a professor in Delhi University. Let me begin with that. And she has also a very keen interest and written extensively on cinema and India Pakistan ties, terrorism. She has several books on the issue. So, welcome to this program, Professor Meenakshi Bharat. It's really been wonderful to finally get you. I have been wanting to speak to you for several months, especially after, as I said, the terrorist attack in Pahalgam and thereafter Operation Sindoor and what has happened to that. Welcome to this program.
Thank you, Nilanjan. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I'm hoping something really significant will come out of this interview because these are ideas, as you have given in your extensive introduction.
Now, let us begin with, cinema has been an integral part of India during the national movement. Also, there have been various films which were made, which kind of reflected the national movement. We are not getting into that because that's a completely different subject. But post 1947, the biggest trauma in this country was partition,
Partition.
the existence of Pakistan, the idea of nationhood on the basis of religion. India did not choose to go on the same path. And the other big issue was, of course, will we be able to develop? Will we be able to be a successful nation? We promised to introduce, universal suffrage. Would we be able to conduct the democratic exercise, elections in a big questions were there. But partition is something which was there all over. It was there in the north and the west. It was there in Bengal. Bengal, of course, had gone through
Yes.
this entire period of partition right from 1905 onward. So much more intensive kind of a trauma which was there. Now, when you look at the cinema of that particular period right after independence, what did you find most notable elements?
Let me just begin by placing myself vis-a-vis the partition and the identity of Pakistan as a nation. I'm a post-partition child and have no direct experience of what Pakistan really is, in the sense that I've never been into Pakistani space. I've never seen what
Okay.
Pakistan or even erstwhile Pakistan space was like. But even so, I mean, the partition has been part of uh, my my under subconscious, my unconscious, forever. It
Right.
resided in the name of my parental village, which was called Hardo Khanpur. And the name itself tells you who the denizens were. This particular village, I mean, all my experience of this village was of a Hindu village. It was
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
primarily Hindu village. And and of course, right next to my grandparents' house, there was a little mosque which was falling becoming absolutely, it was unused and therefore it was falling to ruins.
And
So
this was in
the,
Punjab.
this is in Punjab. This is in Punjab. This I'm talking of a village near Hoshiarpur,
Right.
which is one of the major cities of Punjab. In any case, the point I'm trying to make is that even though as a child, neither the partition nor the idea of Pakistan was something that I recognized as time went on, and with my training to see critically, as a post-colonial theorist, as a student of literature, and as a cultural theorist, I started to see the meaning of both the all these entities, my village,
Right.
and of course, from thence, the partition, what the partition meant for the people, and so on. So the partition, in terms of Hindi cinema, is there's no two thoughts about the fact that Hindi cinema is the national cinema of India,
Right.
right? So in terms of now what it seems to be saying, or what it is saying, it represents broadly what how Indians think and feel. And initially, Hindi cinema took to the partition with confusion. With confusion. I mean, it
Okay.
never looked at, it didn't want to recognize it, and therefore it did not talk of Pakistan as an entity. It just talked about the trauma that the partition brought. And so films like Firdaus, the early Firdaus, and so on, or Apna Desh, these were films that talked about the immediate repercussions of the Holocaust. But as time went on, filmmakers started seeing and recognizing the partition as as an event, as a political event, as a historical event that had far-reaching repercussions on all of us, on our psyche
Mm-hmm.
as Indians. And therefore, the representation of the partition became a more focused. It brought to the fore not only the not only the confusion, not only the pain, but it also brought to the screen the violence that accompanied the partition. And therefore, the partition film became the best representative of what it meant to be Indian in the context of the construction of a new nation, which was torn from its womb, as it were, Pakistan. And therefore, what you see in the partition cinema, which is a constantly growing category, what you see is both strident nationalism and chest thumping rhetoric, and also that longing, that desire for a sibling or for a child that has been taken away from you by force.
Right. You have talked about a lot of films, in your book in the 50s and 60s. Now, I must confess, that as a child, because quite like you, I am also a post partition child
Uh-huh.
and also grew up with the sense of Pakistan. And also, in my case, also the sense, quite like you, that I never grew up in Bengal. I grew up in North India, but despite the fact that culturally Bengal was there, but it was not till very late because I was a Probashi. It was not till very late that the consciousness of
Right.
partition in Bengal became an integral part of it, and it became an understanding of mine quite now. Is courtesy thanks to something to do with cinema, and I must tell you, courtesy to do with Mrinal Sen, because it was just a matter of sheer chance that while watching his retrospective films along with a friend, we bumped into him way back in 1980-81 during the Delhi Film Festival, International Film Festival of India.
Hmm.
At that time, it used to be held here, not in Goa. And then I do not know how it happened that we got invited for a breakfast with him, and an interview followed, without knowing what we are going to be doing. So, anyway, the important thing is that at the end of it, he asked me that you are a Bengali. Are you Provashi or do you have a family back in Bengal? I said that I grew up all my entire life in North India. So he said that if you have to, do you understand about Bengal much? I said, not really. I have not. I was fairly young, just in my early 20s at that time. So I
Mm.
said, there are three things about Bengal which you must understand, which if you really want to be able to relate to yourself, culturally. So one is, of course, Bengal partition, both of 1905 and 1947 and what happened. The second thing is that he said, that you must understand and try to figure out what is the Bengal famine was all about. That is something which is very important. This I knew a bit because it had passed down to my family. My father would tell me stories of his childhood, of famine, of not having enough in homes to eat at that time. So definitely, I knew that there was something that happened there, in Bengal. And the third thing is about the turbulent Bengal, Naxalbari and post and what happened in the late 60s and early 70s, right leading up to the finally the installation of the left front government. So that's something, so that's how partition is there. And I just cannot avoid it from my thought process that even as you and I speak, it is also the birth centenary year of Ritik Ghatak, and
Right.
he was haunted by the partition probably much more than
Absolutely.
the other two great filmmakers of Bengal, Satyajit Ray and Mrinal
Mm,
Seth.
yes.
His longing for what was there across the river. It comes across so painfully in Ritik Ghatak's film. Anyway, so I learned from your book reading about it. Waqt, I did not ever think about it as a child. I watched it, did not understanding to figure out that earthquake was actually a metaphor. You know, I never looked at it that way, and I found it unique. So even a very popular film like that, how, and there were several others also which you mentioned. Can you just tell us that how even in what we now call as mainstream cinema, the theme, the idea, and the narratives of partition were getting along, even while they were staying consciously away from partition and the politics of partition and independence, of course.
So I think by now, the bifurcation of cinema between mainstream and parallel and art cinema and so on, I think that has become a redundant kind of division.
Today,
Today,
yeah,
absolutely,
absolutely.
and I think it has been this erasure of this division has been some time in the making. It's not as if it's just happened,
Yes,
but it has been over the almost I think from the 90s onwards, or the late 80s, or even the
yes,
once Benegal and moved out, had done with his films. Let's put it this
yes.
way,
There you go.
and
Exactly.
yeah, thereafter this integration has taken place, and so the any take on Pakistan or any take on the partition that you get today has to be seen within the framework of the mainstream Hindi cinema, right?
Right.
So even when you have a film like Earth 1947, or you
Right.
have Begum Jan. These are
Hmm.
films that, or even that, a comedy like Filmistan, let's say,
Yes.
which would probably in the 70s have been named parallel cinema. Today, a film like Filmistan takes on mainstream cinema and makes it the mainstay of its critique of what being distanced from Pakistan means, and what mainstream cinema has been doing and has done it very adeptly, actually. Even while strident anti-Pakistan films, strident picturing of the horrifying antagonist has been going on, and we
Yes.
know. Every time the relations between the two countries moved downwards, this chest thumping jingoism comes to the fore. It always
Yes.
happens. What I'm trying to say is that there is a simultaneity that is vibrant, simultaneity of perspective that is vibrant, which sees Pakistan both as the unsettling enemy,
Hmm.
and the kindred spirit, which speaks the same language, which has the same angst, which has the same pain as we do on this side of the LOC.
Right. When we talk about films related to partition, there is no way that we cannot but talk about Garam Hava, which actually also, in a way, ushered in the new wave or the parallel cinema, whatever we want to really call it, in the sense that
Right.
there were films much before, there was Mrinal Sen making his films, Akash Kushum onwards, starts. Quite a lot of work had been done. Uh, if I'm not wrong, Moneyball had also, I think, made
Yes.
27 down, around that same time. But anyway, Garam Hava is something which takes it right into Agra, the heart of a city which actually got partitioned. It did not get divided into colonies. But yes, even now, if you go to Agra, I was fortunate to live there at that particular time and actually sense that what must have happened during the partition years. Uh, what really took so much of time, for filmmakers to be able to make a film like uh, Garam Hawa, or would you say that it was actually you required somebody who was politically, you know, essentially a political person? MS Satyu was essentially a political person because he came through the IPTA and was very much part of the left consciousness in the country. Worked as with Hakikat, he was an assistant director there. So he had his kind of a grooming, so it had to be him. Or was that Indian filmmakers were not really getting ready to face the partition in the way it was done in Garam Hava? And subsequently opened doors for other filmmakers also.
I think what you're referring to is the lag between Garam Hava and the films that subsequently take on the partition. Am I
No,
right?
I'm
Is
also
that
saying, right from
right from the
47
beginning? Okay, right
beginning
from the beginning.
onwards, that a
Yeah.
film like Garam Hawa with that kind of a
To,
story, taking the story of just one family, which is itself breaking up, not the nation
yeah.
breaking up. It's also the character of played by Bhisham Sani, which is also breaking up.
Right. So, as I said that the partition was a reality that no one really wanted to accept. And I'm now talking about the North India. I'm talking of the Western Pakistan and my experience of people from the Punjab and from North Delhi, so to speak. These people, when they came to India, they thought that it was going to be a very temporary kind of movement, right? And whatever came along with the partition, and that I'm referring to the violence once again, whatever came with the partition was something that that was horrifying, and many people who experienced it personally, and people who witnessed the partition, it was a reality that they wanted to somehow do away with. You know, it's a pain, it's the horror that they didn't want to recognize, and therefore, and uh, uh, in a way, there was, as Butalia calls it, there's that silence which takes over, and you cannot process this trauma immediately. So so cinema, which is the most realistic representation of reality, because it is a visual medium, took its own time coming to. Coming to face this reality, so to speak. And that is why, as I said, the initial films on the partition, they didn't even talk about Pakistan as an entity. They just pushed it away, and they talked about the pain that came along with it, as if not recognizing Pakistan on screen would somehow push this reality away and somehow reverse the horrifying events that happened. But with time, and people are thinking about it. As I said, people are constantly thinking about it, but unwilling to speak about it. But as with time, of course, you had a brave person like MS Satyu coming, not only making Garam Hava, but also picking, identifying a Muslim family as its focus, which is partition simply because it is a Muslim household. It's a Muslim family. So it took many years for somebody to actually pick it up, and it actually needed somebody as alert as MS Satyu, as invested in the reality of what it meant to be Indian in these communalist times as MS Satyu. So MS Satyu, when he came up with Garam Hava, as I said, uh, the fact that he is talking about a Muslim family, and the fact that he has taken up a story. It's based on a short story by Ismat Chugtai.
Yes.
Uh, he's picked up a short story, and he has seen so much. So much meaning in it that he's made a full-length feature film on it.
Yes.
It took a long while, and it's almost as if he had so much to say. There was so much that could be said, and so it comes as a timely critique of what the partition actually meant. But once again, after Garam Hava, there is a lull. There's not an immediate pickup of this
Yes.
theme of the partition, indicative of the fact that MS Satya was way ahead of his times, and he is important for opening the doors, yes, in a big way, but it took a long while for actually. Establishing something that comes to be called a subgenre that comes to be called the partition cinema, right?
Yes.
And
Right.
the heartening thing is that as time goes on, the partition is talked of more and more, even in cinema that is actually not any film that is based on the India-Pakistan connection. The reference to the partition will always creep in,
We always
because
keep.
that's
Exactly. You know.
absolutely. So the partition is never far from this cinema, and more and more cinema solely based on the partition is also being made. And therefore, as I said, Earth 1947 or Begum Jan, or recent films which constantly go back to even Gold, the sports film, makes the partition a very central part of the drama that unfolds on the field.
Right.
So it's always there.
Yeah, it's always there. You know, you cannot leave out the
Yeah,
partition. You cannot leave
yeah,
out the wars between India and Pakistan. You know, out of
absolutely.
films. I remember among the various films that I saw in the years that I grew up. Hindustan Ki Kasam was a film, which we went. As you were saying, there would always be films which had a certain bit of, pumped up nationalism. So yes, I do
Yeah.
remember, even Hindustan Ki Kasam being there. But moving on to the other issues, which are there.
Yeah.
There's another very important issue which is integral to the pain and agony and happiness on both sides.
Hmm.
Uh, Slight bit of happiness on India that Kashmir is still a part of India, right
Yeah.
from 19 late 1940s onwards.
Mm. Mm.
On the other side, that this is ours. That has
Mm.
been the sense. Till and Kashmir has gone through its has a fresh set of problems from the
Yeah.
1990s onwards, late 1980s onwards. Terrorism starts, and it still continues today. There is a communal displacement has been there of the Kashmiri Pandits from the Srinagar Valley, from the Kashmir Valley. So all those things are there. Now we have on one hand an extremely jingoistic film like Mission or Kashmir Files.
Kashmir
Uh,
Files.
yeah, so you have that kind, and you have had various other. There was a time when you couldn't imagine any Indian film without a Kashmir background. From a school
Absolutely.
tour in 74, 75, around that time, we went there, and we were there exactly in Pahalgam where this unfortunate terrorist strike took place. And the entire focus was on finding the Bobby Hut.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's how Kashmir was an integral part. But as a problem, as contested territory, did it find any space in the Hindi cinema in the 50s, 60s, 70s onwards, or no? It was an integral part of
No,
it.
I don't think so. I think the 60s, the decade of romantic, the heyday of romantic films in Hindi cinema,
Yeah.
Kashmir was the desired backdrop
Yes.
for everything that you wanted in love, everything that you wanted in terms of reaching out to the other. Right. So,
Right.
and this went on, spilled into the 70s, but I think it was only, and as you said, the Bobby Hut 73.
Hmm.
That's about the time that it peaked. It peaked this
Yeah.
romantic backdrop, but. And I think that is one of the reasons also that Kashmir has so much of central presence, continuing to have a central presence in the minds of Indians because it's such a beautiful state. And a representative uh, uh, of this representation of all that one could want in paradise. This is the paradisal state. Whether
Yes.
you're Pakistani or whether you're Indian, this becomes representative of what really India meant. Right, and so both countries doggedly claiming Kashmir for its own. So you have a different Kashmir on the map of Pakistan and different Kashmir on the map of India. Therefore, the
Yeah.
wars that are fought between India and Pakistan are all focused in this LOC area, so across the border in the west, and with Kashmir being central to it. The subsequently the proxy warring too has its take off from this particular border. So Kashmir continues to be a focus of the India-Pakistan film, but it still continues to be beautiful. The Haseen Wadiyan are still part of the mindscape of the Indian, but now it is a ravaged paradise. It is a paradise which is constantly under threat. And so the old kind of, untarnished, completely pristine beauty and the
Listen.
untarnished love, not possible any longer. And so whenever you see Kashmir now, it is with that sense of loss. It is with that
Yeah,
sense
and
of,
you have had films also which have actually, explored terrorism and all
yeah,
that. Vishal Bhardwaj's Heather, for
Heather,
instance,
Heather, Heather.
really one of the most poignant films. So Kashmir has been there. I'm just kind of moving on to another very important genre. Which is India-Pakistan love. Across people. Some one in India, one in Pakistan. Another
Mm,
very important theme. Also, the issue is that besides India-Pakistan love stories, there is also another one which is intertwined, which is love and communalism. That also happens around the same time. On the one hand, you have Veer Zara. On the other hand, 10 years ago, maybe around 10 years ago, maybe you had Bombay, which take place in the
yeah.
backdrop of the Babri Masjid demolition. Is very
Yes.
much there. And you were talking about Satyu, and when you were saying that films of became much later, I remember that as part of one of the professional exercises we were doing, we were having an interview with Satyu, and he did say that, well, Bombay is an excellent film. I said, but that's not the kind of film that you would ever make. But yes, I do not have the skill to make a film like that, but I do not think that you can take away what he communicates. So that is what Mani Ratnam communicated in Bombay. It is
Yeah.
very much a Hindu Muslim, and it actually confronts the problem head on. That is what we see. So how do you look at the fact that yes, filmmakers started, treating one sort, you had the Veer Zara, the other you had certain amount of complexities coming in love, in communalism, as well as cinema, India Pakistan.
Yeah. I think key takeaway from these cross-border romances,
Hmm.
and since you're mentioning Vizara, and you've spoken of it not once but quite a few times,
No, I spoke of
Vizara.
it only because of his
No,
music.
no,
There was a time then when I had to
exactly.
actually drive long distances, and that was just around the time that the film was
Yeah.
long. So it used to be a,
No, no, no.
yeah,
I think it's a very pertinent film to take up at this point
yes,
of time, since you mentioned Bombay and
Bombay,
in the same breath, in the same breath. Now, V. Zara, despite the fact that it talks about cross-border romance, it incorporates all the inherent tensions between the two countries within it, and therefore offers a critique of the partition, of the division between the two countries within the love theme,
yes,
as it were. And therefore, I think the romantic Hindi film, it becomes one of its a very apt kind of film to mirror the reality of what this relationship is about. The fact is, as I said, and I think I mentioned this earlier, it's the constant feeling that there is something which ties Pakistan with India, the constant feeling of loss that is there, and the assertion that we are not really that very different. And so Veer and Zara can meet on one level field of the field of love, so to speak, without any loss of understanding, in the sense that they're speaking the same language, they are wearing the same kind of clothes, they look alike. And if they did not come up and say that I'm Indian or I'm Pakistani, they could possibly belong to the same space, right? And therefore, I think that the critique offered by the romantic film is very important, because it actually takes the covers off a very the undeniable reality that there is much that the two countries can relate to within the other's figure. And I think at this point, I must bring this up. I was in London recently, and I'm talking about a month ago. And because I'd written this book, and it has received quite a bit of
yes, it
attention,
is.
and possibly also because of the timing, timing, but whatever. It is a theme that is constantly alive. I thought, I can't access them here, but let me just see if there is anything coming from Pakistan which is similar, which talks about love, which talks
Okay.
about war. So I watched a nice, it's a romantic comedy, rom-com, as it were, a film called Bachana, which has an Indian female protagonist and a male Pakistani
Pakistani.
protagonist. And they meet, they cannot meet on Indian ground, they cannot meet on Pakistani ground, so they meet in Mauritius, which is a diasporic space, even space where they can meet. And the
For both of them, yeah.
prospers. So what it really tells me is that where the emotion of love is concerned, and where the representation of the possibilities of this relationship are concerned, the romantic film becomes a very, very apt kind of space.
No, very well said. And this point which you made, that we are not really different, was also very powerfully underscored in Bombay. The
Absolutely.
couple there, Hindu Muslim, there's nothing, no real difference. I cannot, but ask you something which is actually not part of films. It's more part of
Mhm.
your understanding of what is happening in India at the moment, how filmmakers are responding to their topics, what are they looking at in terms of the regime's preference of what they would like to be made. All that, in the backdrop of all that. Interfaith marriages
Mhm.
and India Pakistan romances. Have they become a very strict no in today's India?
Um, it has become more difficult. Let's put it this way: it has become
Okay.
more difficult to face this kind of reality of interfaith marriages, even marriages which are marriages that are 40 years old, like the Shah Rukh Khan Gauri Khan marriage.
Yes.
They come under the lens.
And they get
Kind.
commented upon very
Absolutely,
in very
absolutely,
nasty way. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think it is, of course, to do with the current climate. And the current climate is definitely inimical to to seeing these connections. And when I talk about love, let's just be clear that it's not only romantic love. I mean, a film like Bajrangi Bhaijaan had the love
Yes.
between an older, an
Yes.
older man and a little girl who ultimately calls him Mama and maternal uncle. So the possibilities are always there.
There.
And the only difficult thing is, can we really talk about it? Can we really, portray it on screen where cinema is concerned? And I think whether Hindi cinema portrays it positively, or whether it portrays this connection negatively, ultimately it is for the discerning audience to be able to sift, to cull, to think about it, to accept or to reject, right? It is being put out there for you to look at it. And I think that's a very big step, whichever way the cinema is made. But now I'm looking at the other side. The fact is that cinema is born out of the perceptions, the perspectives of the world as it is,
Yes.
or India as it is, of society as it is. And that is one side of the picture. But on the other hand, it can also impact uh, public,
Public
public.
reaction, public thinking,
Absolutely,
definitely.
absolutely, public thinking, definitely. But I don't think that we can eschew any representation, because built within it is the invitation to critique, and I think that is what is positive. Indian cinema, Hindi cinema, and Indian cinema as a whole, really constantly, by putting it out there, invites this reaction, and that's why I have a hopeful attitude, and hopeful that the possibilities still keep coming through cinema, and through Hindi cinema in particular.
Wonderfully put. And even though I have made, very copious notes, and, I have pages which are still pending. I'll have to keep several of these pages, into our, for to be discussed at a later point, on another show when another opportunity comes to us. As you also said, that it is also up to the audience to actually sift through all these films which are being made, and then obviously if more audiences go to a certain kind of film, that then they obviously are going to be made more similar kind of films, because at the end of it, cinema is a
Absolutely.
commercial activity. We cannot forget that. On this note, I will say goodbye, and I will thank you very much for having such a you know vibrant conversation. I hope that the people who watch it like this conversation, and like me also feel at the end of it, I wish we could have continued to talk about a few more times, but then we will do that again. Thank you so
Thank you,
much, Professor
Nilanjan.
Meenakshi
Thank you.
Bharat.